you very much.
Thank you. And, okay, Council, I'm going to call to order the Council workshop for Monday, May 8th at 5 o'clock. We have an agenda that's been circulated. Any errors or omissions from the agenda is presented. Hearing none, it's been moved by Councillor Muir. Is there a seconder on the matter? Seconded by Councillor Forbes. Call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. We do have a set of minutes that's been circulated for Council's consideration. This is from the March 27th Council workshop. Are there any errors or omissions from the minutes as presented? Hearing none, will someone move adoption of the minutes? Moved by Councillor Forbes, second by Councillor Ma. Call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, Council. So tonight, sort of the run of the evening tonight is we have a Council workshop that has really two items. Again, they're not super time sensitive. They're one that we've been working on over time as we've had opportunity. We do have to break at 6 o'clock for a special meeting. While there are 4 items on the special meeting agenda, they are actually all just elements of the annual plan. And so the annual plan will have a public input period for it when all of those items are attached to it as well. And so I'm not anticipating that being a long special meeting. Some of it's up for adoption and not for debate anyway, but the other elements are all just being approved so they can be in the annual plan for public presentation. Once we're done with that, whether that's 10 minutes or half an hour or 50 minutes, whatever, then we'll return back to continue on where we left off with the Council workshop tonight. And so the 2 items are not specifically 1 hour now and a specific set amount of time at 7 o'clock or something. That meeting could be a 10-minute meeting and we'll just reconvene returning back to the meeting. So yeah. Okay, so Council, we have the first item up for discussion is the continuation of our Digital Services and Information Technology departmental update. I have been assured that we have about 3 slides remaining.
I added 3, so there's 6 now.
Added 3. Total of 6. Total of 6. Okay. It helps to give people milestones along the way, kind of thing, so that we know what to expect. So over to you.
Thank you, and your worship and members of the council, thanks for the opportunity to come back and wrap up after our last session together. I am going to provide a quick recap of what we spoke about last time, just to freshen everyone's memory. A couple new slides to provide some new information about cybersecurity, and then questions and answers based on the material that we covered last time and this time. Mr. Gordon, do you mind switching the screen over? Thank you. So very quickly, we talked about who our groups are in IT and in digital. We spoke about all the common work we do, the shared focus areas that we have. We talked about the start of our digital strategy and our digital services group and skills that the team brings, the priorities of our digital strategy, which is meant primarily to provide better service to the public through our channels, mostly the website. And again, the new ways we have of working, taking a citizen-centric approach, learning from the information that the public provides us and adjusting our services to suit their needs. The highlights, this is John Moreau, Manager of Digital Services, covered all of these, and I expect there'll be questions about some of these things. We talked about the work that we did in 2022, mostly around our intranet, Report a Problem, which is a new service on our website for the public to report problems. Some of the accessibility work we did and improvements to online application forms around permits and trade permits. For 2023, this is the list of things that John mentioned. DMV Plus, which is our concept for providing digital services through our website. Work is starting shortly, and you'll start to see that roll out this year. The continuation of our online application forms for trade permits. A new website platform in CMS, which will content management, which will overhaul our website and the way it works and improve things like search and content, the ability for people to find content on the website. This work we're doing supporting other programs that are happening, especially the development applications process review. A lot of that work will entail changes to how information is provided on the website around permitting. Also work around content governance and the council decision report, so the voting history. Those are the things that John covered last. These are the few slides that I didn't get to last time. So I was meant to come up and provide you with an update on some of the kind of back office or IT work that's happening this year. This one's already complete, the first one. That's an upgrade to our permitting system. Good timing because it will support the DAPR project. That was completed at the start of April. Upgrade to the software, and then the DAPR project we expect will result in improved workflows and things like that we'll figure into the product. Our business more efficient, and also then will make things more efficient for applicants.
Sorry, is the DAPR project for internal or external?
It's both. It's the development application process review, and that's being led by Dan Wilber's team. They'll be looking at ways to make our permit process and our application process quicker, more efficient, easier for people. And a lot of that information, those tools are now through the website. So then it's on us to deliver those. And then there's the enterprise system, we call it EnerGov, behind the scenes, which our staff use to process all of those permits from application right through to occupancy. And there's at times, sometimes years of work for a major development. All that happens within software that we support. With a lot of work to then figure that so that the tools are available for our colleagues, our staff. This is a big one, the new document and records management system. We're moving from an old called eDocs to SharePoint, Microsoft product. We expect that will take about a year. It's moving documents from one system to another to make sure they're more available and we're able to collaborate better and share them better, but it's also going to enable us to take advantage of a lot of new technology around tools and automation, things like that to make our business. Last one down here, business intelligence and reporting. Part of the SharePoint platform is also products that allow us to surface information and provide reports and dashboards for council, for the public, for district staff, so we can have better access to information and make data-driven decisions.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So on the DAPR, it's going to make recommendations about how we can be more efficient to our customers. And then is it going to make a recommendation in regards to a platform to be able to support that efficiency?
You certainly can. The PPP group is leading that one. So I've offered up that everything in IT's world and digital's world is up for debate, is on the table. So if there's services or processes that we can't support with our current technology, we can look at new technology. All of this for
So how long can you just tell me how long that DAPR program is going to take to finish?
Dan is the expert on that. He'll be in the room for the second item.
I guess my challenge with all of this is that we already know we have a big problem in that department with how we respond to our clients. And the city of North Vancouver has a system, and you can remind me what it's called. Okay. Anyway, it's a system where a client will submit an application for a building permit or an application. And it's every couple of weeks or every week, they're sent a reminder as to what they're deficient in their process, because they're going to need like multiple permits for all sorts of things. So it's actually a system with a bunch of check boxes. So when you check it off, you're good. But then they follow up with you. So we're not relying on people. It's a system to send to that customer. And it's very efficient. And I guess my concern is that, all of this stuff takes time to implement. So if it takes like to the end of this year to finish this DAPR program, then we have to kind of figure out what software we need. Then we have to go out and get it. Then we have to implement it. Instead of I think, does technology already tell us where we are deficient and where we are log jamming in a lot of these areas? And why don't we accelerate it and fix it now instead of waiting to have a report tell us what we basically already know?
Well, I can't speak to the content or I guess the direction that Dan's project is going to go in, other than we're here to support it. I know you're going to be getting an information report in the coming weeks that has a number of, they're calling the quick wins, so low-hanging fruit. And some of those are technology related, and some of them are actually already done. You'll hear about those. But I know the project aims to identify things that can be addressed sooner than later, and a way to do that. And there's longer term goals, and technology change can take time and can be quite expensive. And there's a migration process we have to go through. So those things can take time. The piece that the city has that we don't is that online public facing tool that allows them to have better insight. We're gonna solve some of that through some changes to our current process, which should be done this year, and you'll see that in the information report. The bigger piece where people can apply and have full insight into the process as they go through it, that's the kind of the public facing piece of the large planning software. We looked at one for our current system a number of years ago now. We couldn't use it because of security concerns. It was an American-based company that didn't work for our environment. And we had attempted at the time to go live with one of those things. We couldn't do it. So that's where the DMV Plus concept came in. So we're aiming to solve that through that one.
And one more question, if I may. Are we right now able to see where those log jams in our system are? And can we alert the departments that, oh, we've got a problem down here, things keep stacking up? I keep using the acronym, or the, not the acronym, but I describe it in this way, that planning is upstairs, planning all these things, and then they throw it down to engineering, and engineering's got all these balls they're trying to juggle, and they're dropping a bunch of them because they've got too much work and not enough people. Is that how it works, Dan?
Not quite.
But we're sort of. So if there's a problem down in engineering, can you see that now?
We can tell how long some things take, and we can't tell how long some other things take based on how the system's being used. And we are providing information to the project team that will then mine that information and look for those roadblocks. And then the key is then looking at why those roadblocks exist. Sometimes it's external agencies like the province holding things up. Sometimes it's even the applicants holding things up. Sometimes it's us. And that's the state of the project right now. Just getting started, but we will look at the data that our systems are providing through those business intelligence tools to highlight roadblocks or issues where we're feeling a crunch and zeroing in on those. I would consider those also the first places to look.
Thank you.
Another thing we do is a number of line of business apps, we call them. So these suit kind of a niche group within the organization, but they can provide a lot of value and a lot of return on investment. What I wanted to highlight was this product called Submittable. One of the community planning team came to our digital group with a problem around grant management, how we manage grants. Julia then went throughout the organization. Julia's in the services group, she's a business analyst, and found half a dozen or so different groups who do similar things. We introduced Submittable to the group. We currently support these grants that are listed, just 3 or so things. And it's an interface, it's a tool that allows the grant applicants, the committees that review grants, and the staff that manage those grants all to work within the same area, have full line of sight through the life cycle of a grant. And the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. I don't have numbers other than the positive feedback and an estimate that we're about 70% more efficient. As with every project, we like to identify metrics that we can measure, time savings, so that we can turn that into dollars, et cetera. So that information is coming, but tools like this are introduced by our group to suit these little pockets of the organization, and they can make sometimes a huge impact to the people using them, more so than some of our big enterprise projects. A couple of other ones that we've introduced last year, online ticketing and event booking. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but if you go to Maplewood Farm now, you can buy tickets online and schedule a time. And when you show up, they'll scan your ticket. They were, until last year, with an old school cash register and no ability to do things online. It was quite difficult for them. So we introduced tools for the farm and now the ecology center as well. And later this year, we'll be helping our colleagues in finance introduce a new budget planning forecasting tool that will then help us with every budget cycle.
So we're doing that, so event bookings, so group bookings into Maplewood Farm, anywhere else, like because the parks are booked through the rec commission, right?
Yeah.
So is there sort of a synergy there? I'll give you just a quick example that I have a local realtor in Deep Cove who wanted to have an event at Kate's Park and submitted their application at the end of February. And the rec commission told them that they had to have it in before the end of December. So they were too late, and we'll look at our system, call into them, but we'll look at our system, and if anything is available, we'll let you know. But the problem for the client is that, are they just supposed to wait until we tell them that we've got space, like at the end of May, which is too late because they've got to find another venue? And so how do we?
We're always looking for opportunities to consolidate our platforms to make things especially easier and more seamless for constituents, citizens who need to book these services. We did have online ticketing running through North Van Rent Commission for a matter of months, and it didn't go well. Their business was very different than the business of the farm around ticketing, around booking. We had to fit our square peg into their system, and it just did not work well. So,
And yet we've shifted our park system over to the rec commission for them to schedule. And, you know,
Rec
I
Commission
think-
website is really not user friendly.
They're changing it, yeah.
Classes and stuff, and for this purpose, this
nightmare.
was a big improvement, so.
one thing we especially found was, for instance, with the rec commission, you have to have an account already. You have
It's a
a
nightmare.
loaded up. You would have had to have that in order to buy tickets.
it's not your phone.
Mr.
If I
Joyce?
could just mention it's on Mike Hunter and Stephanie's work plan for this year.
Yeah, they're gonna fix that website because it is
Both
very.
are going to be looking at it, one from the rec commission,
Right.
one from the DNV park side.
But I would say that we need to understand our clients' needs, and it's not just about how it works for us, it's gonna have to be about how it works for them. So there's gonna be short-term people that just say, you know, I just wanna book a table for 12, you know, this weekend.
For sure.
You know, is there availability, yes or no, like a restaurant? You know, yes or no, you can find out within seconds on a website if you're gonna be able to get in there. Whereas we're kind of waiting months to see if it works for us to go through all the applications, and that doesn't work for the taxpayer or the client.
Our digital group and our IT group that supports them, especially for tools like this, we can spin them up relatively quickly, these line of business applications especially. And we do them, especially if they're public facing, 100% for the public. We want to make things easy for the people that are booking tickets and booking tables and the like. We're less concerned at that point about how well it works internally. We can figure that stuff out. But we focus on our citizen needs, what we're hearing from them, and how those systems work. So that they work, and mostly that they line up with expectations these days. They're as easy as getting an Uber, for example. They're as easy as buying a concert ticket, although that can be difficult as well. But so sometimes we want to be better than Ticketmaster. But we do definitely look at the citizen experience first and foremost with these things.
Thank you.
Couple new slides. This is the new stuff. I just wanted to give you guys an update on cybersecurity. I mentioned last time that the response to the pandemic drastically changed things for IT. Everyone went home with a laptop. Everyone went home with a phone. A lot of different devices that we had to secure, a lot of new ways of working and technology that we introduced. Governments since 2020 have become the #1 target for cybersecurity for malicious actors. We have recently invested in a specialty position in IT, so a security analyst. And we have partnerships with a company named Mandiant, who's now owned by Google. They're helping us develop our cybersecurity initiative and kind of formalize our posture. So we have 3 pillars based on technology, education, and policy. And honestly, the hardest 2 are education and policy because they involve people. The technology is the technology, but educating our colleagues, our staff, and even the public on good cybersecurity practices. And then the policy around setting up rules and guidelines. And sometimes that's pulling back things that people are used to now because of the environment we're in. These are the 3 pillars that we're addressing cybersecurity through. In order to address especially the policy piece, we've created an information security committee that includes North Van Rent Commission and the Public Library in order to harmonize our cybersecurity posture for the organization. They're considered as part of our organization for cybersecurity needs because of our shared service model. It can be challenging, but that work's just beginning, and it will take some time to get us all on the same level playing field and to bring our cybersecurity posture to a place it needs to be.
What sector are the malicious actors mostly targeting in government?
You've read my mind. This is a report that was just released last week, a couple weeks ago, from Mandiant, who's our primary partner. Kind of hard to see on here, but #1, government. So these are of all of the issues that Mandiant has helped research for their customers. 25% of their investigations involve a government agency. Business and professional, finance, high tech, high, but still much lower than government. One of these reasons is government is seen as a weak link. For governments, we don't know what we're doing around technology, right? But we have this rapid change due to COVID. We have what we're perceived to be a kind of lower budgets, less skilled people, that kind of thing. So governments are a target. And that's where all of you come in, all of us come in. We all need to be responsible and we need to be vigilant and we need to really keep our eye on the ball.
Part that's how you slice and dice it. I mean, business and finance should be together. and we'd look less bad. But one of the problems we have, and I hope the district doesn't play a role in this, is Metro Vancouver, as an example, had a major breach several years ago and refused to tell anybody about it. They decided that they didn't want the reputational damage or whatever the case may be, and they didn't decide to go out. Well, they could have warned every single municipal partner in the region how it happened, what it looked like, what to look out for. And instead they were concerned about reputational damage, so they didn't. So Translate took the opposite direction, which was as soon as it happened, public notification out to the news media, sharing it with all the partners, telling exactly what happened. In that case, it was a ransomware situation, but they were like two very different approaches from our partner agencies. And I gotta say, our role, if we have a breach, the reputational damage is secondary to protecting our sector. And we need to be open and forthright of what's happened and what went wrong and send it out. We'll deal with the reputational damage if there is. I certainly don't want it to happen, but obviously I think we have an obligation, whether to our neighboring municipalities, to help protect each other from those kinds of things. And the more municipalities step up and say what happened, I think you're more likely to be able to protect against it.
When it's our policy,
We're working on it. Which, do you mean if we
as
were?
far as if we did have what the mayor just described, would we phone the rec commission and talk?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
all of
we
our
would-
partners.
We would definitely, obviously engage with our partners, and we would be as transparent as we can. There are potentially reasons why we couldn't be in certain areas, but especially if there's a data leak, if there's information stolen from us, if there's information disseminated about, say, people or private information from our system, we have to obviously be transparent about that, inform everyone who needs informing, and also put together a plan, and we'd work through people like communications, Ambient, the governments, higher levels of government in order to, and there's the Canadian Center for Cybersecurity that we're also a member of, and they have also people that can partner up with us if, God forbid, an issue like that happens. So we would be transparent and we would work similar to how Whistler did, and being transparent about what happened and those actors accessed our system, and we want to share that so that it doesn't happen to anyone else. Sometimes, unfortunately, we can't tell how people actually got into the system. From Ambient, they have the ways that an infection vector or how a malicious actor got into your system.
Councillor Hanson has his hand up.
Oh,
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just following up on this topic of the malicious actors and to better help us understand the nature of the problem and perhaps our responses. Do we have any idea what their motive would be? What sort of information would they be seeking, or what would be the strategy? Why would the district be targeted by malicious actors? Thank you.
it's an excellent question. It's in the report, but I didn't include the graphic. But it depends on the target. So government is a target because of ransomware mostly, and for leaking information. But a lot of times it's ransomware or to get money. It's all profit driven for the most part.
Here's where they lock up your data and then sell access back to you.
So they could try to access our system to lock up our data, sell access. They could try to get access to one of your accounts and then use that in a way to bribe you or to extract money from yourself, trying to embarrass you for things like that. That's especially why people like CAOs, mayors and councils, senior management are targets, because they're seen as important people with reputations to uphold, and they don't want to necessarily obviously be hacked, but then make that publicly aware that they were,
Wondering, I don't give out free cards.
Yeah.
Different,
Yes, you do.
that was the one that was going around, was that the mayor has access to some free Apple cards or whatever. Just send us your info and we'll get those to you. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
The key ways into a system are software exploits. I don't know if you noticed, but a couple weekends ago, we had to take some of our online services offline because a vulnerability in one of our online services patched it over the weekend. It was from a third-party vendor providing a patch. We were not particularly forthcoming about that issue, so it had existed for a couple of weeks before municipalities caught word. Word traveled immediately on Friday afternoon, of course. But by Monday, thankfully, the vendor had stepped up and they actually provided a fix on Sunday, which we applied. So those services have been brought back online. The rest of these are people related. So phishing is when you get an email purporting to be a little offering up some Apple gift cards for some reason, or stolen credentials. Someone guesses your password. You don't have multi-factor authentication set up. So as soon as they have your password, they have access to your email. They send emails to your colleagues, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of times they'll send an email to the IT group and say, hi, this is Mayor Little. Can I please get access to so-and-so, or I've lost my phone, I need something right away. And a lot of times people will jump and think they're dealing with you and jump on it right away. So these are the various different ways that hackers get into our systems. Fortunately, a lot of people related stuff.
I watch those little videos every month.
Thank you. There you go. There you go. City of Dallas, 2 weeks ago, ransomware. They were lucky in that it only took down 911 and some of their police services. So this was just a couple of weeks ago. It was in the press immediately. They were transparent about it. What happened was they came in one day on Monday and all of their printers started printing out this note that basically invited them to contact them to know how many Bitcoin they needed to send to the Tri-Royal, the security company, in order to unlock their information.
That was sent to who?
Dallas.
City of Dallas. So all of their printers in the city of Dallas started spitting this message out. What was interesting is in the analysis and who they talked to, the security experts, when they talked to Dallas, was that incidents involving, this is US-based, local governments happen at a rate of about 1 a week. So at least 29 had been impacted by ransomware that year. And most of the incidents involve small governments. That's why you don't hear about them. You hear about the Dallases or the Torontos, but you don't hear about the smaller governments like ours, like Whistler, for example. And in addition to the 3 slides, now we've wrapped up the 2 presentations. So any more questions?
I would just like to pick up on, what, is that right?
Oh, Councillor Ma had his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Picking up on the issue of the protocol in place, like I understand that I think what you said was that you're working on it for the department. Generally, in terms of reputational damage, that falls under the heading of comms. And comms should have a strategy for what happens when, this kind of cybersecurity is breached. And that would include, how to convey it to the public, who's the spokesperson. All of these things should be in place so that we can easily be as transparent as possible when it actually occurs. Do we have that?
I know I definitely talked to comms about it at the time that Metro Vancouver went through theirs.
Yeah.
But I'm not certain what's in place, and I don't have a comms rep today.
We need to look at.
So I think.
Sarah, are you aware of? I mean, we've definitely talked about it because we talked about it for both TransLink and Metro, but I don't know what
Plan in place.
We have a
I really think we should have a.
SOP on this kind of matter.
Certainly, we have a strategy for any of these types of leaks and breaches, and we work closely with IT. So I think it's probably a really good time to go back and revisit and make it more of a plan as opposed to strategy.
Yeah.
Proactive instead of
In terms of
reactive.
the external communications piece, if we all agree that it's important to be transparent, I think we do. So,
And it obviously escalates when it's our citizens' data
yeah,
that's vulnerable.
exactly.
With TransLink, it was also personal and medical data of the board. And so it was, their leak was complex.
Councilor Pope, that's an excellent observation. One of the things that we've had a couple of cybersecurity audits for the last couple of years, and one of the things that we need to do is develop the standard operating procedure for an event like this, and it will involve tabletop exercises, they call them, like we do it for emergency management, and actually they will play a role with something like this, where we sit down with different groups and say, okay, and they're off the screen now, but Mandy might run that, and they would say, okay, you just had an incident, it's of this type, what do you do? I mean, they coach us through it. And there would be a tabletop exercise for mayor and for senior management to get your messaging straight. You guys are going to be the voice of the organization. You're going to have the voice of the public as well and be a great liaison in that case. So you would be involved and you will be involved once we get to developing these programs.
There are now PR firms that do nothing but this. They specialize in data breaches and all of it. So it's big business. Happens all the time.
But from from the perspective of reputational damage, you know, it is happening all the time. It is becoming more sophisticated how these, you know, actors, bad actors get into these systems. It's changing. It's hard to keep up. And so I think, you know, most people just realize that it's going to happen. It's just when, it's not if. And you have to make sure you do the best that you can. So as long as we're proactive instead of being reactive, then that's the best we can do, right?
That's true. A lot of it is even minimizing the outcome if someone were to breach our system. So if we were a victim from ransomware, like Dallas was, they again only got 911 and police services. We would potentially say only get our parks departments affected or something. And so through our technology, we can, and we're working on this now, carving out our different areas of our network, our systems, so that bad actors can't get to everything. You obviously want to prevent them from getting in the first place, but if someone were to get in, you want to limit the damage as much as possible.
Right.
That's what I'm-
Thank you for this presentation. Just following up on the migration from eDocs to SharePoint. And I know the community associations, they like to be able to access historical information. How much of the documents under eDocs will be available under SharePoint?
All of them, all 6 million documents.
But it will be more searchable under the new system, right?
Absolutely. So there's a couple things, there's a lot of things that this project will give us, but we will be moving, as I say, from eDocs to SharePoint, and there's a document management piece of that. So those 6 million documents go from one system to another, organized a little differently, organized in a way that's easier for staff to access and far easier to search for. All of the business improvement that goes along with that as well, plus the benefit to the website, making those documents now available through the website in different ways so that they are much easier to find for, and actually findable. I know of our history, we haven't had documents traditionally been available through search on our website. So there'll be a whole new way of working with council information and council documents and other bylaws and things like that, that the SharePoint project will bring us. So a lot of that technical work is going to happen on the back end throughout the year as well, while all these documents are moving over in a waved approach, department by department, over 12 months. It's supposed to be 6 or 9 months, but we're giving ourselves 12. So.
And I'm assuming it will also include video of
Yep.
stuff.
All kinds of media, pictures, video. I was speaking with Councilor Forbes earlier about older videos. So we have videos back to 2011. So we are going to look at how to bring back as much as we can. There's technology involved, of course, and there's 21 year or 11 years is a long time in technology. So there's a limit to how much we'll be able to kind of bring back and resurface and make available through the website. With respect to that project, all of our documents from one system will be going.
What about the historical photos on GeoWeb? When are those coming back?
That's a great question. That was my baby, so I'd like to see them come back as soon as possible. They exist on GeoTools internally, our internal app, but I will touch base with Krista and our GIS group.
We really need to put those back. That website was so good, and then we started taking stuff off it. Like we've got the solar, that's on there still.
It's also near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, so we need to put those historical photos. They're very helpful.
Those came off due to a technology change, so we upgraded the systems to support the software. And at the time, we looked at we did an analysis of how often things were used and accessed, and probably fell below the red line.
We actually had a problem with a resident who had just bought a house up in Upper Lynn Valley, I think. And we were able to determine through those historical photos that what they thought was a deck actually turned out to be an old pool that had been built, and it had been covered over by a deck and it wasn't disclosed. And then when they started doing a renovation, they found this massive cement, 12-foot high, huge hot tub, really was what it looked like, but it had been there from the very beginning. And we pulled out those photos, but if they had just been there, they could have used them themselves, right? The realtor could have seen it.
We now have we always had, but we have a great relationship with Metro Vancouver, and they now provide air photos to all the municipalities every year. Maybe it's every 2 years, but we now have a wealth of a good collection of photos back to 1971, I believe.
Yeah.
We can make those available. The other thing we're working on, I'm not sure if John mentioned, was a data strategy, which will then lead us into like an open data platform where we'll be making this stuff available to anyone who's interested in a way that they can find and use the imagery and any other data that we have.
Is that the last,
I have a
of the
question.
slides?
I have a question. I'm sorry if I missed it. Kelowna is doing a pilot project with AI.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What, are we party to that, monitoring that? Is there anything else that's gonna be coming out, metro-wide or some other tools? Because I've gotta think that if you pump enough, approved building permits in, you can probably get a fairly well-trained AI tool to determine, to help us.
Thank you for bringing that up. I've spoken with Jazz, who's the CIO at City of Kelowna. He's got a number of us keeping us informed of the work that they're doing. He gave us a good rundown of the reality of their situation, what they've been working on and how they got here. I've been gradually writing a guidance document around ChatGPT and AI. It's changing so fast that I've changed the document a million times. I might just have ChatGPT write it for me.
There you go.
Having said that, people are using that tool internally, and there are good ways to use it, things to use it that are appropriate, and perhaps some that aren't. Some of it's just philosophical. But with respect to Kelowna specifically, the work that they're doing is funded by a grant from the UBCM, and part of the grant conditions was that they share their work. Thankfully, they are in a very similar technology platform to ours, SharePoint, for example, and it should translate directly to the work that we're doing and the technology we use. It is a lot of work that they're doing, and it is changing quickly. So the benefits that they're seeing and the way they get there are meant to be shared with municipalities in British Columbia, and then we can pick that up and take it alongside them or not, depending on our comfort level or how well it works. It's still unproven.
But so that's just how they're going to use it internally within a specific system. So what about the regulation around AI for local government and provincial governments and federal governments, and not reacting to it because it is growing, it is happening way too fast. But do we not need to have a broader discussion with, our partners, Metro, the provincial government, on how we are going to regulate AI within our own jurisdictions? Because we got to do it now. We can't do it after the fact. And that's going to be, when's that happening? Who's organizing that to work?
The federal government is.
Okay.
And that is a problem
I
traditionally.
don't know if I feel good about that.
It's a problem traditionally with how fast government moves, which has a reputation of not moving quickly. But this, AI, this whole conversation didn't exist before November last year. Well, not
That is frightening.
6 months ago. We were talking about cryptocurrency. We're talking about AI. Now we're talking about AI. There is a lot of misconception around what it is and what it isn't. It's not really like you're talking to a robot. It's not sentient. It's not.
It might be.
It's a very good tool at a lot of things and surfacing information, pulling it out of its sources. There's also bias involved in how these AI tools are created. They're only trained on information that a human has given it. So if a human gives it information that potentially is unsavory, it's going to regurgitate that to you. So there's a lot involved.
Says the technology guy. Did you watch 60 Minutes where they're teaching themselves how to deke out soccer balls into nets? You got to watch that.
Yeah, I've seen it. But, yeah.
Microsoft's a bit worried about that, and Google is too. We're not quite sure how they taught themselves. They did. We're looking into it. Like,
But at the end of the day, for at least the next 10 years, what you're likely to run into with AI is AI being led by a malevolent party, right? Like that some group is going to be using AI to crack your cybersecurity or to impersonate you or something else like that.
It's already happening.
Generally applicable AI is not capable within the current computing structure. But when we get to quantum computing coming up very shortly, it actually definitely moving.
It's changing very quickly. One of the key things that Kelowna is doing, and will be of interest to us, of course, is they are, so they've subscribed to the latest version of the ChatGPT platform through OpenAI, and they are turning it internally and putting it in a sandbox so it only considers a certain amount of information and then applying it to their chatbot. So a member of the public will go to their website, ask their chatbot through their website about a bylaw or a zoning regulation or something. And if their current technology can't do it, ChatGPT version will pop up, and having access to all of the bylaws return feel much more accurate.
I have to step out for a minute,
Yeah.
Councilor Geary.
It's a very evolving situation. Week by week, there's new letters, there's new information, there's new advances.
Yeah.
So
Frightening.
we are very much keeping in touch with Kelowna and what they're up to.
Any other questions? Okay, so that's the end of this presentation. We did have Carolyn Grafton here the last time to talk about the broader communications part of this discussion and the website and all of that. When's that happening? After we go in there for 14-minute special meeting?
Through your worship, you're the worship now. We plan to bring that back at a later date. We thought, because there's also a 2-hour presentation with Tina Apfa today, we thought it might be too much and the council wanted a little more time. So we think we'll bring that back at a later date.
Okay. I think we may want to have a little discussion going forward about how some of these are booked, these meetings are booked, because now we're going to be on day 3 of communications and IT, which really should be all in one night, I think, because you start getting into it and so many things connect, right? Like how you communicate business applications and, different development applications with the community on a website, how people are accessing it. So it really needs to go together. So Mr. Stewart, I think council really is going to be interested in sitting down and talking about how we are going to manage this work, because you guys do it all day long and we get it once a week. And so when we start talking about something and get into it, like I didn't save the first half of my slides from last week to this week, and I only got the second half of the slides because I thought they were all going to be back again. So it's that kind of thing. It's the continuity of the discussion and being able to have enough time for us to be able to ask a lot of questions and then play off on each other's questions and comments. Like, different members of council have different expertise in different areas, and they bring up a lot of interesting points that those of us that don't have that expertise would like to ask maybe a further question on. And if you split up an issue and then move to a different week, then you forget, or you don't have your notes and you got to start all over again. And right. So I think it would be really helpful if we could sort of get this scheduling of these big issues down pat. We have been asking for a discussion on communications for quite some time, and now we have to wait. Do we have a date for that?
We'll get it done this spring. Because we were trying to balance, I think there was 3 things. The short-term use, also wanted to get at, the comm stuff, and the IT, I think we generated that. We thought council would be interested in that. And there's a couple of other planning things that I think we're trying to fit all into the schedule. Particularly if it's workshops, there's not that many of them, so.
But I think we did say it last week that we were willing to look at another night. If we're overflowing, we don't want to do it every week. Obviously, we do not want to have 2 nights out every week. We have committee meetings, we have other, we have families, we have, other events that we need to be at. But certainly, on some of these big issues, if we need to fit in a second night, we need to fit in a second night. And I think the conversation we need to have is we can't lump in some of these big issues all on the same night, hoping that we're going to be able to just, get it in
Are
there.
we finished with the discussion though about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
I definitely think.
That's a sec. Yeah, go ahead.
No,
Just a sec, Andrew.
That's fine. I definitely think that we need to have a conversation about what comes to a workshop, what goes to a council meeting.
Yeah.
And it seems like, and then, many of us are also meeting with people outside of here and developers and that to learn, and then they come to a workshop, they say the same thing. And so I think there's a lot of overlap there, and it would be nice if we could, collectively figure out a better way to streamline our
work.
Yeah.
Our work. Yeah.
I would echo that in some way, to
Yeah.
say we have to be pretty specific about the criteria for what goes to workshop, because there's no shortage of things we could send to a workshop.
Exactly.
And I have no interest in doing that, every week. I prefer to see things come to a meeting where we have a decision to make at the end, but, and we also have information reports, which is another great way to get information. So,
We need to have a discussion about the
reluctant to
whole thing.
support,
Yeah.
more workshops, when we already have quite a few.
Okay, so staff have heard that we need to organize this a little bit better. Organize our time, organize what we're bringing. And I think there needs to maybe be a question to council, like, you know, if there's a list of big items that are coming through, you might not know what a big item is. You might not know what a big item is.
Short-term rentals.
Yeah, like short-term rentals is a kind of a big item, and communications is a big item. Like communications could have been a whole night, you know, it may have been 2 nights because it's such a big issue and we've been asking for it for so long. So you may want to have to, you know, you may want to check in with these. Kelly, do you have any comments in regards to the workshop that we just had?
I did want to make one comment about submittable, actually. I am a member of the CSAC committee, a new member this year, and am pleased to be learning submittable. And I would like to just say it's a very comprehensive, very efficient way. From what I'm understanding, the other members that have been on the committee said this has improved everything very much. And for me, it's very simple, very comprehensive. So I think that's a great move, and I thank staff for bringing that. And then with regards to workshops overall, I notice a lot of the time they are rushed, they are packed in, and there was a chance for the public to speak. But right now, what's been happening so far this year is they finish at the limit, you run in there, and then, so there's not always members of the public to speak, but sometimes, yeah, that's a shortfall.
Just on Kelly's comment in regards to submittable, I have no idea what that is. I have no idea what it looks like. I have no idea what it does. And we are actually responsible for appointing as recommendations from our committee of the whole, but also council appointing the public to these committees. I think it is important for council to sort of understand some of these, you know, additions to these committees or processes that are put in place. So we sort of have an understanding of them, because we often don't, you know, and I think we should. So that might be something else that we add to the list of things to do. I would say that workshops were brought up, Councillor Hicks brought up, he termed them committee of the whole, meetings of committee of the whole. And it was a way for us to take the big discussion out of a regular agenda in the chamber, because our meetings would go late. And so we did that, and it cut the meetings down 2 hours generally. We were in the chamber for and then home. And then the workshops were more about taking something and tearing it apart and having a really good, robust discussion. And then, you know, there would sort of be Mr. Stewart typically, and Mr. Bidewell at the time would sort of sum up the discussion and then go forward with a report to council. And we kind of already vetted it all. We kind of knew where we were going. There would be some comments within our 6 minutes, and then the issue would be decided. My perspective of having both, you know, experiencing all 3 ways of doing things, is that the workshops have now turned into sort of more of a pseudo council meeting, asking for direction. And they're more structured now, whereas they used to be a lot more laid back and informal. And we got a lot of really good work done, and you still get a decision, but it's in the chamber, and you can really vet something. And I really hope that we can go back to that. Betty.
Just my comments on it. And I think that we all gather information when we're all talking together. And you can't do that in the public forum. You have a limited amount of time, and you can't kind of go back and forth. And so I think the value of workshops, and prior to the last term, the terms before that, Tuesday night, if I'm correct, I remember right, Tuesday night was the workshop night. And as it is, we only get 2 workshops a month. And if we got a long weekend in there, forget it, we lose it. So we don't do, it seems like we do a lot, but they may be all in one time period, and then all of a sudden the holidays start. And I really value being able to sit as a whole group and listen to everybody, because you may say something that I didn't think of, and then that'll spur another question. So I'm willing to, I would rather, I don't want to stay late at council chambers, so I'd rather get out in 2.5 hours on Monday night. And if we really need one, come back for a workshop on Tuesday night.
maybe, and what we used to do is have maybe a workshop and then a public hearing, right? On the times where we did, you double it up, right? And because we don't have public hearings all the time, maybe once a month or something, so you add a workshop prior to that, you can get that business finished. But I think the other thing, not just for us, and we don't want to waste staff time either, right? Because lots of times people at staff are waiting around for us to talk about something and we don't get to it. It's also the public. And last week was a good example of the public being here. We had to stop. We knew we weren't going to get through 69 slides or however many there were in here. But we really wanted to have that discussion. So, you know, I think it's a benefit for everybody. We want to have these good discussions, not feel rushed. And you know, again, we only get this information very infrequently, whereas you guys get it all the time. So you may know what it's all about, but we don't. And, you know, seeing as how the buck stops with us, I think we need to be clear on everything.
I guess if I could.
Yeah, sure, Drew. Go ahead.
My point was just that we could send any number of things to workshops. So I think let's have some
Yeah,
clear parameters around what it is and what we want to get out of it. Because I think we can meet about anything. And I too value hearing other people's opinions. And I think of different questions as I hear other people talk. But I just think that we have to be clear what we're sending to workshop. And if it's, you know, sometimes it feels like we send something to workshop and there isn't a clear outcome. And so, you know, how often do we need to do that? Like, let's maybe just send.
So should we schedule a workshop to discuss?
workshops.
We can schedule a meeting.
Put it on a calendar.
Yeah, ASAP, so we can get this sorted out for the fall for sure. Okay, we've got, okay, so we're going to recess. We're gonna recess right now. I don't need a motion to recess. We can just recess. We're gonna recess. We're gonna go in there. We've got a few things on our agenda in there, and then we're gonna come back in here. And when we come back in here, are we starting the short-term rental right away? Okay, so there's been no time. So yeah, this back and forth, this is another sort of problem. Like if we had, and I know that we didn't have a special meeting, or we didn't have this edition, this 5 o'clock edition on the regular schedule. You know, for a flow perspective, for discussion perspective, it would have been nice if we could have just had a special meeting in there at 5 o'clock, done it, because now we have Zoom. So there's no issue, I don't think, with the public coming in a little bit earlier. It used to be that we wanted them to come home from work. Now you can do Zoom, right? So that has sort of changed the game. So it would have been nice if we could have done the special meeting at 5, finish that off, and then come in here. And then it would have been nice if we could have had that whole communications discussion. Because it's a really important one to have, and we want to get to that one, and then gone into the short-term rental, although that probably should have been 2 nights. Okay, so there we go. We have 4 minutes or 3 minutes to get in there. We have 4 minutes, council. Take my agenda.